All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream, or welcome if you're new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and thank you for joining me on such short notice. Normally, I have my streams out there like way in advance, so you know exactly when they're going live, and normally they go live at a different time, as I'm sure you know. But I was running a little bit behind today, and I haven't really been streaming on Mondays, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later on. But today we do have some more topics to go over and discuss. The main topic of discussion that we're going to be having today is in regards to the PlayStation 5 Pro. We have yet another rumor regarding the PS5 Pro to go over that I think comes from what would be considered a pretty reliable source. We're also going to be going over the leaked PS5 Pro specs. And of course, Boss is here all ready to join us. We're going to be talking all about the PS5 Pro. We're also going to be talking about Rise of the Ronin. We did talk a little bit about this in the previous stream, but frankly, I didn't spend enough time talking about it. So I want to go over it a little bit more here today. And I also want to talk about the graphical fidelity of Rise of the Ronin. Again, we touched on this a little bit recently, but it's interesting. Some people, it's pretty divisive, to be honest. Like, it's more divisive amongst people than I expected it to be. And then we also have a couple of bonus topics as well. Before we do any of that, though, I want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to both Jake Skew27 and Corey the Legend Landiga, both starting off this stream by gifting out some memberships. Corey drops a 5-bomb on you guys, and Jake Skew drops a membership gift. He's been doing that pretty much every stream, starting it off with one membership gift. As you can see, Boss clearly already wants his snacks. So, I think you guys know how it goes. But, Boss, I just don't understand why you have to put your head right in front of the camera, dude, to block my face. Like, you could be anywhere, really. But, yeah, you guys know how it goes. If we hit 25 members today, I'll give Boss some of his snacks. Even if we can't hit that by the end of the stream, I'll still give him a couple snacks. Don't tell him that, though. Don't tell him that. Can't make him think that's the case. But thank you guys for doing that. So, yeah, before we dive into the topics, I do just want to let you guys know that I appreciate all the viewership. I know you know that, but if you're watching the stream live, shout out to you. If you're watching the stream after the fact, I appreciate that just as much. It helps tremendously. Make sure you take advantage of the timestamps, okay? I know that people who come in, not everybody who joins the stream is looking to watch the entire thing. So by the time you join the stream after the fact, you should have access to those timestamps. Make sure you utilize them. Devil Shooter does a great job with them. Do me a favor, hit that like button. If you do enjoy the streams, that's the easiest way for you to let me know. 3 ways you can support me directly. Number 1, consider becoming a channel member. You get to gain access to the Members Lounge. We did a Members Lounge episode yesterday. It was a pretty good one. It was kind of all over the place. We'll be doing more of them, of course. I don't think there's going to be one today. There will likely be one tomorrow. So consider becoming a channel member. Gift memberships if you are a channel member. And last but not least, please consider donating a super chat. It helps tremendously. You can ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It all helps. Bro, why are you stepping on my mouse? Clicking stuff. All right. So we're going to dive into the report here. This is coming from WCCF Tech. The title reads, PlayStation 5 Pro specifications are being shared with third-party publishers. Give me 1 second to move this. This is a rumor. So they say here, Sony recently started sharing information on the PlayStation 5 Pro specifications with third-party publishers, judging from a recent report from a well-known insider. Speaking during the latest episode of the Sacred Symbols podcast, host and known insider Colin Moriarty said that he was explicitly told by one of his contacts at a mid-sized third-party publisher that the company has been informed regarding the console's specs. Unsurprisingly, first and second-party developers already have access to the PS5 Pro details, according to Colin Moriarty. Give me 1 sec. Boss, if you keep doing this, where'd they go? you do with the snacks? Here. Sorry about that. Fine. I'm just going to have to give him some. We're not at 25 members, but in case you guys can't tell, I'm going to have to sort this out. To be honest with you guys, I'm going to have to sort out what we're going to do with Boss because he's getting involved way too early. Come here. There you go. So I don't know if we're going to hit 25 members today, but I'll just give him the snacks now in good faith that we do. All right, let me go back to this article here. The PlayStation 5 Pro has yet, or sorry, hold on. While information regarding the PS5 Pro specifications being in the hands of multiple studios and publishers has been, circulated, there's a good chance we will hear more about the consoles soon enough. I don't know why it says consoles there. Officially or otherwise. According to rumors, the console will be marketed as a 4K 120 FPS machine, which will be easily achieved thanks to AI upscaling in the vein of NVIDIA's DLSS. Performance improvements are also expected to require little work from the developers. The PlayStation 5 Pro has yet to be officially announced, although there seems to be a wide consensus within the gaming industry regarding a late 2024 release. We will keep you updated on all of the news and information. So obviously I will keep you guys in the loop there. And so, yeah, this is beginning to escalate. It's so interesting when we talk about the PS5 Pro because there are so many people that I still see that I won't say don't believe it, but just at this point, it's not a matter of belief. I think a lot of people didn't think the PS5 Pro was going to be a thing. It's pretty clear by now that it is going to be a thing. Now, people are basically saying, well, listen, is it going to be worth it, right? Like, is it actually going to be a meaningful upgrade? But we heard that first-party studios gained access to the PS5 Pro dev kits. First-party studios are usually the ones that gain access to stuff like this first and foremost. In fact, it's safe to say that Sony's first-party studios have likely been working with the PS5 Pro for a little bit now, and then not too long after that, usually a couple months after that, the third-party developers get access to the PS5 Pro or the Pro console, the dev kits, that is. And then now we are, I guess, hearing that publishers are beginning to, I'm assuming like it's not just about the specifications, right? If you think about the presentation that Sony's going to give third-party publishers, it's not just about, okay, hold on one second, guys. Boss, I gave you what you wanted, man. Please leave me be. I'm trying to do my stream. You're messing up my camera. Why you do this to me, man? I'm just trying to report about the PS5 Pro. Oh my God. I love you, boss, but holy shit, I just gave you so many snacks. Is it not enough? Is it never enough for you? He needs a Pro upgrade for his snacks. More! Just as some of us feel we need more out of the PS5, power-wise. We need more power. Boss needs more treats. He needs a Pro upgrade. He's looking thick from this angle. It's all those damn snacks. Anyway, I would have to assume that based off of this report that's coming from Colin Moriarty, he says that, hey, he heard from a third-party developer that, there was basically a presentation that Sony did on the PS5 Pro. I think this is not only Sony divulging the specifications to publishers, but more of a marketing beat type thing. You know what I mean? Now that we are getting further into 2024, we're going to continue to hear more and more about the PS5 Pro. And one of the things that we are beginning to hear a little bit more about is how Sony is apparently going to market this console. As the article stated, they're going to market it as a 4K 120 FPS machine. And it seems, based off of other rumors we've heard, that ray tracing is going to play a significant part of this marketing as well. I would assume that when Sony's giving this presentation, they're also focusing very heavily on the marketing of the console itself and basically just kind of presenting this new hardware to the development teams, the third-party development teams, that is, as well as the third-party publishers, in a relatively similar manner that they would the consumer. Not as aggressively, of course, but just basically telling them, like, hey guys, this is a big thing we're working on. This is a big thing we're going to be pushing, and we want you to be on board with it. You know, it's something that is going to be releasing at the end of this year. And so I also want to go over some of the leaked specifications. Now, these leaked specs came out back in December. It says the details of GPU configuration vary depending on the source. Kepler, who was the first to name the custom APU as Viola, which is apparently the name of the APU that the PS5 Pro, the custom APU that the PS5 Pro is going to use. He now claims that the SoC offers 60 compute units out of 64 available. This means that the GPU has 3,840 stream processors, the same configuration used by Navi 32 based RX 7800 XT desktop GPUs. It's worth noting that this information is contrary to what a separate reset error leaker claims. The reset error leaker, when previously leaking these specifications, claimed that there would be 56 compute units available in the GPU. More recently, it seems that other rumors are circulating that seem to be also indicating that we are looking at about 60 compute units inside of the PS5 Pro GPU. And that's fascinating because when you think about it, the current PlayStation 5 model, if I'm not mistaken, has 36 active compute units. I think it has a total of like 40 compute units, but like 4 of them are purposely deactivated due to yields and whatnot. And so we're looking at basically what is somewhat close to a doubling of that. There's going to be 64 total compute units to be available in the PS5 Pro GPU. 4 of them are going to be deactivated, which will leave us with 60 compute units. So it sounds like we're going to get a lot more performance out of the PlayStation 5 Pro's GPU. This does remind me of the PS4 Pro, because when you think about the PS4 Pro, what did Sony really try to sell people on? It was the GPU, essentially. They said, hey, you're going to get 4K. We're going to really lean into that. Of course, it's still going to be at 30 FPS, but that's really what we're going to lean into. And what made that possible is the significant bump that we saw in the GPU of the PS4 Pro. So with that being said, the other specifications here, the code name of the project, again, is Project Trinity. That is pretty interesting to think because if I'm not mistaken, the original project name for the PS4 Pro was Project Neo, if I'm remembering correctly. So Sony seemingly going with like this kind of Matrix theme here. And I think the project name for PSVR was like Project Morpheus or something. So pretty cool that they're kind of going with those Matrix names there. But the CPU is going to be an 8-core AMD Zen 2 clocked at 4.4 gigahertz. So that is worth noting, where we're not seeing a significant change in the CPU. To be honest, there was never going to be a significant change in the CPU. That would definitely alter the Pro model too much, where it would require too much, I think, development time to have to try to like utilize that. It would screw everything up, basically. You could end up seeing developers creating a PS5 Pro version of a game that they suddenly would have trouble getting running on the base model PS5 if they were to dramatically change the CPU's performance. That's based off of my understanding anyway. So that's why they're keeping the CPU pretty much the same. So that way it just makes it much more easily scalable, minimal work for the developers to get the most out of it. It says here that it will apparently be RDNA 3. I think when it comes to the ray tracing, though, the rumor is that the ray tracing is going to be like RDNA 3.5 or potentially RDNA 4. It says here, while the PS5 APU utilized a blend of RDNA 1/2 architectures, the upcoming PS5 Pro is expected to transition to a hybrid of RDNA 3/4. The primary graphics will be RDNA 3 based with enhancements in ray tracing, drawing from the RDNA 4 architecture. Notably, dedicated ray tracing hardware will handle BVH traversal for ray tracing acceleration instead of shaders. The gaming console is reported to boast 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory connected to a 256-bit memory bus, resulting in 576 gigabytes per second bandwidth. The GPU clock is rumored to be 2 gigahertz, equating to a single precision compute power of 28.67 T-flops, thanks to AMD RDNA 3 dual issue design. So there we go. Once again, PS5 Pro, 28 T-flops confirmed. Now, I don't know that that's exactly what that means, but some of this stuff gets a little too technical for me. But it also concludes here by saying the announcement date, supposedly for the PS5 Pro, is going to be September 2024, with the release being holiday 2024. So that makes sense. It seems like Sony wants to keep the announcement very close to the actual release of the PS5 Pro. Makes me wonder if it's going to come in the form of a showcase. We do know that Sony does like to hold their showcases in September, but we've seen Sony do showcases like last year in May. So who knows? Maybe this is a 2 showcase kind of year. Considering the PS5 Pro is coming, that would make sense. We have a super chat here from King Sam, or a couple of super chats, I should say. So thank you for that, King Sam. You're saying, I beat Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League story. Really enjoyed it, assuming it's later revealed the Justice League isn't really dead. I thought the story was pretty good. Went into the game with the assumption in mind, and so wasn't bothered by how the characters were handled. Great cutscenes, good humor, solid gameplay. And then you say here, jumping back in when there's more story added. Major issues like infinite loading, which lose you progress when restarting, and other bugs bring it down. Well, that's unfortunate to hear, but it is also good, though, to hear that you did enjoy the story. So you're telling me in a game called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, they actually kill the Justice League? Whoa. Major spoilers there, bro. Come on. No, I'm just kidding, of course. But I appreciate you getting back to me on that, King Sam. I did ask you when you beat the game to let me know your kind of final thoughts on it. And I do wonder if it's going to get more story content or not. I don't know if that's something they confirmed. I do have an extra bonus article here that we're going to go over a little bit later on, that kind of, I guess, talks a little bit about what's going on with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And it's, I just will say this before I continue my conversation about the PS5 Pro. I think no matter what, for me personally, I just won't be able to get over the fact that we got like the greatest Batman trilogy in video games ever, that catapulted Rocksteady to just an upper echelon development team, one of the best in the world. And when they concluded that, they spent almost a decade making a game like this. Again, I'm not trying to dump on it or anything, but it's just, I don't know, man. You really got to wonder, like, why they chose to go in this direction, right? Like, was it really Rocksteady's choice to try to position this game as a live service? I don't know. All I do know is that I hope Rocksteady does something pretty different when they move on to whatever their next project's going to be. I hope that they kind of just stick to single player, I just feel like that would have been the best move for them to make. But either way, King Sam, thank you again for getting back to me, and thank you so much for the super chats, man. Getting back to the PlayStation 5 Pro conversation. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here. So, yeah, basically what this equates to, based off of my understanding, because, people who aren't into the whole technical side of it, I'm not really into the technical side of it. The question is, all right, what is the PS5 Pro going to do differently than the base model PS5? Well, based off of what we're seeing here, it seems pretty clear that if you upgrade to the PS5 Pro, what you're going to get is not a native 4K resolution, as in it's not going to be running games natively in 4K. That just simply requires too much at 60 FPS. You're going to be getting a new upscaling technique that is going to be patented by, I assume, Mark Cerny. They'll probably have some kind of name for it, but it'll basically be Sony's equivalent of DLSS. And you're going to get what will be, at least perceived by you, a 4K, a native 4K image, and it will be running at 60 FPS. But there is going to be much better ray tracing on the PS5 Pro alongside this native 4K image, or what will look like a native 4K image at 60 FPS, than what we saw on the PS5. Ray tracing on the PS5, I think, has been pretty decent so far, but you can tell that it's just a trade-off, right? Like, you have to run the game at 1080p at 60 to get any type of ray tracing, and even then, it's usually minimally implemented. And this is something that I imagine Sony's going to want to push pretty aggressively, because we saw how aggressively they really kind of pushed ray tracing with the launch of the PS5. And I think they did it successfully. Insomniac specifically, I think they did a really good job kind of showcasing, like, hey, look at what we can do with this ray tracing stuff, right? Pretty cool, huh? And yeah, people are like, whoa, that's impressive. But then it just kind of, I don't know, faded into the background because the fixation, was just basically on, but is the game going to be 60 FPS? And if it is going to be 60 FPS, what's the image quality going to look like? And even right now with a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, again, looking at Digital Foundry's analysis, it's clear that the PS5 is struggling a little bit, where, yes, it can run the game in a performance mode at 60 FPS, but there are some frame drops and the image quality is just not that great. Now, we could say maybe that's down to optimization, but I'm at this point beginning to think it's less about the optimization and more so about the fact that some developers are just, run with their game engines, they're just running into a couple of problems here where it's like, all right, in order to get this game running at 60 FPS, this is just what it's going to have to look like. And for a lot of people, that doesn't matter. For a lot of people, they don't care about the game looking a little bit blurry. They don't care about the game, lacking a native 4K image or even 1440p. They're pretty okay with even it just being 1080p. But I would say there's also this demand out there, at least this is what I've noticed, where it's like, or not even a demand, but more of an expectation where it's like, I don't know, I feel like, I bought a PS5. If I'm going to get this game running in a performance mode at 60 FPS, I expect it to look a little bit better than this. Now, we have seen with Sony's internal studios, I think about a game like God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West. I think it's pretty clear that the studios that are working, most closely, I guess you could say, with the PS5 exclusively, they are clearly able to do some really special things with it. And this is relatively normal because that's kind of their specialty, right? We've seen most PlayStation studios, if not all PlayStation studios, do this with the hardware every generation. But I think what the PS5 Pro will essentially enable is the first-party studios to be able to really dial things up to a dramatic degree, where it's like, okay, if this is how good Spider-Man 2, for example, can look on the base PS5, what is Wolverine going to look like on a PS5 Pro ramped up, right? Or maybe potentially Spider-Man 3 at some point. If this is how good Horizon Forbidden West can look in performance mode on a base model PS5, how insane is it going to look? How much further is Gorilla going to be able to take it on a Pro model for the PS5? So I think there's definitely going to be that side of it where it's like we're going to see, as we always do, PlayStation Studios just dial things up to 11. But when it comes to third-party studios, even partner studios, again, like we see with Square, or partner publishers like with Square with FF7 Rebirth, I think the Pro is going to make it much easier for these third-party studios to maybe not necessarily get their games dialed up to 11 on the Pro model, but if we look at their games being, sticking with this metaphor, dialed up to, say, 7 or 8, right, on the base model PS5, then the Pro will allow them to get to 9 or 10, if that makes sense. That's how I'm kind of viewing it, and that's why I'm totally okay with the idea of a PS5 Pro. I know that there are still people who have this attitude where it's like, why would I buy this? This is pointless. And I get it, but I think I think everybody just has to understand that, like, you don't have to buy it. You know what I mean? The PS5 Pro is going to be targeting a specific audience, a specific market. And if you're somebody who the first thought that pops into your mind when you think of the PS5 Pro is, well, that seems useless. Why would I buy that? It's not for you. You know what I mean? Like if you're totally fine with the PS5 as it is and you feel no desire to upgrade, you're good. Now, when it comes to the concern, because there's always going to be this concern, well, if Sony brings out a PS5 Pro, does that mean they're going to neglect the base model PS5? Does that mean games on the base model PS5 are going to start to suffer? No, that's not what that means. Because the truth is, the way this is going to work is developers are going to target the base model PS5 first. They're going to optimize their game for the base model PS5, squeeze everything out of it that they can, and then they're going to work on the Pro version. And once they move that game over to the Pro, they'll be able again to, oh, we were able to dial this up to 6. Now we're able to dial up to 8. Or if we were able to dial this game up to 7, now we're able to dial it up to 9. That's essentially how it's going to work. And so, you know, kind of brings us to the next part of this conversation, which is how much is this Pro model going to cost? This is a conversation we've had many times, and we will continue to have this conversation until it's officially announced. I do have a poll up in the chat that you can vote on right now. What will the price of the PS5 Pro be? $500, $600, $700, $800, or more? Well, I'm not going to read those results yet. I'm going to wait till the end of the stream so we can get as many votes in there as possible. But my opinion on this is it will be a $600 machine digitally. That's the key point here. Digitally. You will not be able to get a $600 PS5 Pro model with a disk drive. There will be a disk drive available to purchase, or there will even be a disk drive model that you can purchase, but that version will be $700. Just like the way we see it now with the PS5, right? If you want a digital PS5, it's $400. Or sorry, it's $450. And if you want the standalone hard drive, well, actually, it's funny because it doesn't work as simply as I thought it did. I forgot that the price of the digital PS5 model was increased to $450. So if you want a digital PS5, it's $450. If you want the not the hard drive, the disk drive separately, I think it's about $80. So it's pretty close to $100. But I think we're going to see a similar situation with the PS5 Pro. The question I have is this: is Sony going to develop two separate SKUs of the PS5 Pro like they are with the base model PS5? You know, get what I'm saying? Like, are we gonna see a PS5 Pro that has the same marketing? Like, it's basically just a direct reflection of the PS5 marketing, where here's a screenshot of, you know, or I don't know if you would call it a screenshot, but just a kind of marketing shot of the PS5 Pro, and there's two models side by side, one with the disk drive, one without. I'm thinking that's the way Sony's going to have to do it. I think that would make the most sense. And so what we'll basically end up seeing is 4 different versions of the PS5 you can purchase. 2 digital models, base PS5, PS5 Pro, 2 disk drive models, base PS5, PS5 Pro. But I think the base price point, or you know what? Hold on. We could see. Now, let me ask you this. There's a question I have for you guys. Do you think we could see a situation where the digital PS5 is $450? So is it possible that the digital version of the PS5 Pro could be $550 instead of $600? I'm not so sure that I'm confident in that, because it sounds like the PS5 Pro is going to offer quite a performance boost. It seems like it's going to be a relatively significant performance boost, double the power, or at least double the compute units for the GPU, essentially. So I'm not so sure that I would expect it to be, you know, the starting price $550. That would be pretty impressive. You're saying let's not do halves. I would like to not do halves, but Sony has forced me to do halves. We have Yggdrasil. Hopefully I said your name correctly. You're saying, MBG, thank you for your streams. You have made my love for gaming come back. It was starting to fade, but your streams have helped me so much. Well, you're welcome, man. That's actually awesome to hear. I would have never known if you didn't share that with me, man. So I'm really happy to hear that your love for gaming's coming back. I like to think it's definitely not just me, but this community as well. I'm sure this community is a big part of why maybe your love for gaming is starting to come back. So I don't want to take all that credit, certainly not, but I appreciate you sharing that with me, man. And I hope you continue to enjoy the streams because I certainly enjoy hosting them here. So shout out to you for that, man. And thank you for the super. We also have Josh Z here with a $10 super chat saying, MBG, please explain to me why a higher FPS has become such an obsession. I have no concept of the difference between 30 and 60 and feel like an idiot because I don't care about this new norm. Yeah, no, you're not the only one, Josh. I have seen people talk about, 30 FPS versus 60 FPS, and some people saying that, hey, like, I don't really see much of a difference. Now, here's what I will say is there is certainly a difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS. Now, it's not my place to tell an individual whether or not you can see that difference. That's not my place. I can only speak for myself when I say that it is double the frames. And because of that, when I am playing a game at 60 FPS, I do see that and I feel that. I think more importantly, I feel the difference more than I see the difference, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I do understand how deceptive a solid 30 FPS can be. And I say this because, see, that's the thing. Somebody in the chat, you're saying 30 is choppy. See, 30 is choppy after you see 60. That's the thing. Once you see the higher frame rate, and maybe like Josh, I don't know if this applies to you. Maybe this doesn't apply to everybody, but for me, when I see the higher frame rate and then I go back down, I see the choppiness. But I do notice that when my eyes adjust, so for example, if I play a game at 60 FPS for an hour, and then after that hour's up, I drop it back down to 30. For the next like 45 minutes or so, I will see that choppiness. I can't unsee it during that time. But at some point, it's like something in my brain just kind of switches, like the gears switch over, where now I'm not really noticing the choppiness as much. My eyes have adjusted. I guess maybe my brain is just kind of filling in the blanks, the 30 empty frames, I guess, or whatever, however you want to view it. And I've seen this happen like multiple times, or this has happened to me multiple times. And so I think people get a little bit dramatic about 30 frames, if I'm being completely honest. And I say this as somebody who does prefer 60 frames per second. That's the way a lot of these conversations go, to be honest. People get very extreme about it. Like, I could never play a game in 1080p again. It's like, you sure? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not ideal, but is it like that unbearable? Realistically, it's probably like, no, it's still bearable. Like it's still doable. But I think what people really mean to say is like, I don't want to go back. I think that's really what it is once you experience that higher frame rate and you feel it and see the difference, for most people, again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but for most people, it seems like you just don't really want to go back. Because once you go back, all you're thinking about is, I know this would feel better at a higher frame rate. And I think the same applies to 1080p resolution, at least for me. Maybe resolution's a little bit different though. Resolution might be a little bit different because resolution, I think, does have more to do with your actual eyesight in the sense of like, if you have poor eyesight, a higher resolution does, like, you can still see the difference, but I think people who have worse vision have a harder time seeing those differences with the resolutions. I think people with good eyesight, or if you're wearing glasses, of course, basically, if you have 20/20 vision, whether that's naturally or by wearing prescription glasses or contacts, I think you can more easily see the difference between, oh yeah, that's a native 4K image and that's a 1080p image. And it's like purely a visual thing, right? It's like, man, that looks so sharp versus that looks a little bit blurrier. Whereas I feel like with frames, it obviously starts with the eyes, where it's like you can see the difference. For example, when you drop from 60 to 30, you will see more choppiness that seemingly wasn't there previously. But I think the reason why it becomes so noticeable for some people is because the nature of how you're interacting with video games. It's why you don't see people saying, "Man, I can't watch movies at 24 frames or 30 frames or whatever." You don't see people like freaking out when it's like, "Oh, the movie isn't at 60 FPS. I don't want anything to do with it." It's just different when you're interacting with a video game, especially fast-paced video games, a game like Helldivers 2, for example, fast-paced shooter, camera spinning all over. Having that higher frame rate just makes it easier for your brain to process everything that's going on. Like literally, it makes it easier for your brain to process it because your brain is being given more information. That's what's so fascinating about frame rate is your brain is being fed more information. 30 extra frames are being fed into your brain. And that's why some people say, like, I can't play shooters at 30 FPS, or I perform significantly worse in shooters at 30 FPS, because your brain is literally being fed half the frames, and that's why I said your brain adjusts to it and it fills in the blanks. You play a 30 FPS game long enough, I'm telling you, you're like, this is fine, because your brain has to adjust to it. Boss, don't make me keep talking about my brain here, okay? Okay, Josh? Don't make me keep talking about my brain in frames. But I don't know, man. It's different for everybody. That's what it comes down to. Everybody has their own feelings on 30 FPS, 60 FPS, 1080p resolution, 4K resolution, 1440p resolution. And so when I said a moment ago that I think people are a little bit too harsh on 30 FPS, I do mean that. I think some people make it seem like that like games are unplayable at 30 FPS, and like that's not true. Like there are many games that are absolutely playable and enjoyable at 30 FPS. But if you don't have to play them at 30 FPS, then I can understand why you're like, you know what? I don't want to. It's too big of a difference for me. I see that difference. So I don't know if that helped you or not, Josh. I mean, you're saying here, can I explain to you why there's this obsession? Again, to put it as simply as I can, I just think for most people, once you go 60 FPS, it's very difficult to go back. It's very difficult to go back for a lot of people. So hopefully that helps. So Josh, thank you for that, buddy. We have Yggdrasil again saying it's like how an audiophile will prefer a certain set of speakers. The PS5 Pro might be for some and standard for others. Yeah, that's another good way of viewing it too, like with audiophiles and people who, once you engross yourself with premium sounds, right? Like just premium sound quality. It's like once you get used to having a certain pair of headphones that you use all the time to listen to music, especially music, but to, play games, or if you're watching something and you're wearing this premium, really nice pair of headphones that just, you hear everything. And then if you go from that to something that's like half the price or half the quality, the person who used that premium set of headphones, like you will absolutely notice the difference. And it will take time for you to basically forget the premium sound, like hearing everything. You'll have to forget and just get adjusted to this lower quality sound and just say, all right, yeah, I guess this is fine now. But yeah, man, it's just the way it is with all these things. It's once you experience something that would be considered better, higher quality, in most cases, it's very difficult for people to regress and come on, buddy, let's go this way. To regress and go back. Hold on, I think okay, never mind. I thought he was gonna want to leave. So Yggdrasil, I appreciate that, buddy. We also have the Zombie Fanatic saying, thinking I should get a job to save up for the PS5 Pro. Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. It's definitely going to be a premium product. Make no mistake about that. I did see people maybe wondering, will the base model PS5 get a price cut potentially? And we could end up seeing the PS5 Pro come in at the $500 price point. I highly, highly doubt that will happen. Sony seems to have made it pretty clear to their shareholders that they do not plan to cut the price of the console anytime soon, or maybe even at all. In fact, we could see Sony go this entire generation without dropping the price of the PS5 and it just kind of sticking to that $500 price point. So I would not anticipate the PS5 Pro launching at the current price of the PS5. Yeah, see, like you're saying the basic PS5 will be $350. Not a chance. Not a chance, unfortunately. We're just past those days, when it comes to expecting significant price drops. Will they drop the price eventually? Eventually, maybe. Eventually. But from my understanding, Sony is now making a little profit off of each PS5 sold. And so, considering Sony's biggest issue right now when it comes to the PlayStation division is shrinking profit margins, yeah, I highly doubt that they're going to take one of the only things that is producing a bit of profit for them and remove that. You know what I mean? We have Legions GG. Thank you for the super chat, buddy, saying 30 FPS equals Grandma's old Skoda. 60 FPS equals Grandpa's Firebird. There you go. There you go. That's one way of putting it, Legions. I can still play games at 30 FPS. Okay. But I don't know, man. It's the feel of it. And I think it depends on the game as well. Truthfully, I think the faster paced the game is, like the more you move the camera around in the game, because I feel like it's different for every game. Some games you're constantly moving the camera very quickly, very rapidly. It's all over the place. A lot of games require fast reflexes and reaction times. Other games, not so much. I think when you're playing a game that doesn't require as much precise reaction, or the camera movement isn't as intense and all over the place and as snappy, I think 30 FPS can be okay. But any game that is requiring that, I think 30 FPS can be certainly difficult to not necessarily adjust to, but it can be difficult to really kind of, I guess, perform your best, right? Especially because most of the games I'm describing that ask that of you, they're usually, there's some type of skill involved to a certain degree anyway. But yeah, there is just one final thing I want to say here about the PS5 Pro before I move on to the next set of topics. And it has to do with how many games can we expect realistically to support the PS5 Pro, right? Are we going to see, because this is something I haven't seen talked about as much, are we going to see developers support the PS5 Pro as strongly as they supported the PS4 Pro? Well, I think it might depend on how much excitement in general there is for the PS5 Pro. I think it will depend on sales. I think no matter what, we will get very strong support from Sony themselves. So from their own studios, from first party, from partner games. Like, I do suspect we will see a PS5 Pro patch for Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, obviously first party exclusives like God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2, so on and so forth. But when it comes to the third party support, what will that look like? Well, I think what Sony will try to do, and I think they'll be able to, because I think it'll be a solid marketing point alongside new games just to get more attention and maybe potentially sell better on PS5. I think Sony's going to try to court a certain amount of developers to say, hey, Do you want to be part of our September showcase where we reveal the PS5 Pro? If you are one of the first third-party developers with your AAA game to optimize for this console, we would like to have you in our show. So I think Sony will kind of have that marketing advantage to where, let's just face it, guys. Regardless of how much negativity there might be out there for a PS5 Pro, there are absolutely many people who are excited for it. You know, the people who are excited for a new piece of hardware, a new console, they're going to show up. They're going to be excited. They're going to express that excitement. And frankly, I don't think any amount of negativity or concern is going to stop that. I think that's been proven over time. And so I think Sony knows this. I think Sony's going to lean into that. And I think that these third-party developers, or these third-party publishers, I should say, are also going to lean into that. And I think basically what this will culminate in is whenever we do see the PS5 Pro, I think we will see a pretty healthy amount of support. We also do have to remember that Mark Cerny is the one that is putting together the PS5 Pro. I'm assuming he'll be the one that will reveal it, talk about it, give us all the details, give us his philosophical viewpoint, which we always love to hear about from Mark Cerny. He'll give us his philosophical viewpoint on what went into creating this machine. But one of the things that we know Mark Cerny cares very much about, because he is a game developer, is making it as easy as possible to develop for. And I think if there's anything that will ensure that the PS5 Pro will have very solid support from third parties, it's that right there. Ensuring that, hey, absolute minimal effort required to get the most out of this Pro machine. That'll be good for us, obviously, anybody who's buying the PS5 Pro, but it'll also be very good for the developers so they don't have to stress about it and feel like, oh man, we got to worry about this thing now, you know? So I think it could be a good combo here. I think Sony learned a lot. I think it's clear that Sony, over the course of 5 console generations, they've learned a lot about really making sure that we focus on the development side, right? We listen to the developers. We make this thing easy to develop for. It's gotten easier and easier with each generation. I mean, the PS3 obviously was a nightmare for developers. Sony learned their mistake with that. They brought out the PS4. The PS4 was a super easy console to develop for. Night and day difference between the PS3 and the PS4. PS5, they doubled down on that. They made the PS5 even easier to develop for. I think the PS5 Pro will fall right in line there. All right, boss. Guys, give me just a moment. I'm going to have to escort boss out of here. He's still acting crazy, even though I gave him his snacks. Come on. Come on. Go get your snacks. Go get them. Good riddance, boss. Get out of here. I'm just kidding. That's it, dude. I have to lure him out. That's the only way he'll leave. Don't worry. I'll give him more snacks later. If we end up hitting 25 members, I'll definitely give him more snacks. All right. You saying he fell for the trap again? Yeah. You know what? He always falls for it. He knows he's like, when I bring the snacks over to the door, he knows he's not going to get them. That's why he was hesitating over here. He's like, do I want to go? L streamer. He'll come back. Don't worry. He'll come back. Listen, I can tolerate a lot when it comes to boss. I can tolerate a lot of him walking by, sitting in front of the camera, sitting in front of the monitor. But when he's doing it like the entire time, it's like, bro, come on, man. Like, I got to be able to see what I'm doing here. But I'll bring him back. No worries, guys. All right, so that pretty much concludes the topic regarding the PS5 Pro. I imagine there will still be much to say about the PS5 Pro. This is far from the last time we're going to talk about it, but it seems like the final phase in terms of the distribution of these dev kits to developers, to publishers has occurred. Again, first-party devs got them a little while ago. Third-party developers got their hands on them to start familiarizing themselves with them. Now Sony seemingly has done their presentation to the actual publishing, the publishers themselves, to basically let them know, like, here's what's coming. All right, so get on board. And, you know, that will obviously lead. I almost wonder, I do wonder, and I think other people have wondered this too, are we going to hear about the PS5 Pro before September? Maybe. Maybe Sony could kind of tease it out a little bit early. But maybe not. Sony does still want people to go out there and buy the base model PS5. And I think if Sony were to, say, talk about the PS5 Pro in May or June with a release coming in November, might sway a lot. It might hurt their sales, basically. But I guess I will let anybody know. Listen, if you are considering buying a PS5, obviously I would recommend buying a PS5. But I would also say, if you think you would be interested in the Pro, maybe hold off. If you've waited this long, it would probably be worth just waiting for the Pro model. Again, rumors right now, holiday of this year. All right. Before we move on to the next topic, guys, do me a favor, hit that like button. We are sitting at 140 likes, which is great to see. Thank you guys so much for the support. Let's see if we can get that to 150 likes, maybe 175. Helps the streams tremendously. The next topic in line talks about Rise of the Ronin. This is once again being reported by WCCF Tech. Despite being less than a month away from release, Rise of the Ronin developer Team Ninja still had to clarify whether a few key features would be included in the upcoming game. They just did so by adding an FAQ section on the game's product page on the PlayStation Store website. To begin with, Rise of the Ronin offers cooperative PvE multiplayer for up to 4 players. There is, however, no PvP combat. This is a change from previous Team Ninja games, such as the Neo franchise and Wolong Fallen Dynasty, whereas multiplayer was supported for up to 3 players. Wolong also featured Souls-like PvP invasions, and the first Neo had an arena system, for PvP. So we did talk about this, but I just want to reiterate it here because I feel like, there are different people coming in at different times watching my different streams. Just another reminder for anybody who missed it, Rise of the Ronin is going to feature 4-player co-op for the main story missions. I was under the impression that the game was going to be purely single player, and it still is. Like, you can play it alone, but if you want to play it with up to 3 other players with the main missions of the game, you're able to do that. So pretty cool, but it's interesting because I wasn't aware. I guess I just didn't realize that the previous games from Team Ninja, such as Neo and Wolong Fallen Dynasty, I didn't know that they actually had PvP combat. All right, so it says here, like in Neo 2 and Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Rise of the Ronin also supports character creation. Yes, you can freely customize your character's visual features, including elements like their face and body shape, hair, voice, and more. So I saw a lot of people actually getting hyped about this because apparently one of the things that Team Ninja does very well in their games, such as Neo and Wolong, is they have a very, very in-depth character customization situation going on there. And I know people who love character customization, it's a big part of the game most of the time. It's like, it's a huge feature. Let's face it. People who love customizing their characters, it's a huge feature for them. So this also surprised me because I guess I thought that, like, you wouldn't be able to really customize the main protagonist, right? Like, I thought that there was just a singular main protagonist and that's just the way he looked. Maybe you get like different outfits or something. But no, there is a full-blown character customizer. So let's see here. It says, perhaps most interestingly of all, you can change the difficulty settings, which were always lacking in the studio's previous games. They say here, yes, Rise of the Ronin includes 3 difficulty modes: easy, normal, and hard, referred to in the game as dawn, dusk, and twilight, that can be changed at any time. Selecting dawn difficulty unlocks additional settings, including the option to increase health recovery and medicine and reduce Kai loss from attacks. So yeah, this is something I'm curious to know what you guys think of this, because when it comes to Team Ninja and their previous games, apparently this is something that is not really the norm for them. They don't offer difficulty settings, and even more so, it sounds like if you choose to play on the easiest difficulty, they have extra options there where you can make the game even easier. It seems like this is a common theme with any like partner exclusive games from Sony, that where PlayStation. Well, actually, whether PlayStation Studios is involved or not, it just seems like it's becoming a more common thing where having these difficulty options, where it'll just make it so that like even if you're just like really not good at games like this, you'll still be able to play it if you enable all this stuff. I'm totally okay with this. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think this is a good way to allow more people to engage with your game. Like, I definitely respect development teams that say we don't want to have difficulty options. We just want this to be the way the game is played, and that might mean that some people just simply can't play it. I respect that. But I also have no problem at all with developers saying, well, we don't want to do that. We want to have as many options as possible so as many people can play the game as possible. I'm totally fine with that as well. So I think this is totally fine. It says here that it's an understandable feature considering that it is an open world title instead of a Souls-like game, but by its very nature, it is supposed to be a lot more accessible. Even so, the developers recently said they consider Rise of the Ronin to be a culmination of all of their previous action games. They've integrated ranged combat with weapons like handguns, providing more variety during fights. There are also fire pipes, which blow powerful flames. Players can use this ranged weapon to set up a group of enemies, or set a group of enemies ablaze, or ignite a gunpowder barrel to explode. The latter move can also be performed by grappling the barrel with the grappling rope, which is also useful to pull enemies towards the player character and throwing it at enemies. So, yeah, it's also worth noting that there are 2 right now behind the scenes videos for Rise of the Ronin that have been released on the official PlayStation YouTube channel. I actually didn't watch the first one yet. I only watched the second one, but it has been confirmed. Again, I mentioned this in my previous stream, but worth mentioning again. You can collect cats in this game, and you basically like pick them up and pet them, and it reminds me of the foxes in Ghost of Tsushima. So it seems like in some ways this game is pretty inspired by Ghost of Tsushima. But when you watch that behind the scenes video, yes, IP Gaming, you collect cats. And I guess there's a trophy for it too. You're saying that there's been a trophy for it confirmed? Makes a lot of sense, yeah. That's awesome. But when you watch this behind the scenes video of Rise of the Ronin, it's pretty nice because I'm not too familiar with Team Ninja's games, but I can tell like they're really trying to go big here with it. And so I want to just segue this conversation into talking about the visual aspect of Rise of the Ronin. I saw 2 distinct comments on my stream from yesterday, where one comment was somebody, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. One comment was somebody saying that Rise of the Ronin looks trash, stop the cap. And somebody else was basically saying that it's pretty ridiculous that, people are taking shots at Rise of the Ronin's visuals, and they were basically saying that if it was a PlayStation Studios first-party game, everybody would love it. And I'm like, well, I think there's a little bit of disingenuous, just a disingenuous feeling coming from both of these comments, because on one hand, the game definitely doesn't look trash. To me, I think that's about as disingenuous as it gets. It's not that I feel the need to defend the game, but it's like, look, if the game's not for you, the game's not for you. But to say it looks like garbage or something, it's like, I don't know about that one, man. There's a lot of things about this game that actually look pretty good. But on the other hand, this idea that if this was a PlayStation first-party studio game, like it wasn't Team Ninja, like let's just say this was from Sucker Punch, or this was, I don't know, I guess Sucker Punch would be the most realistic studio to make a game like this. I don't think everybody would be saying that, yeah, like it looks amazing visually. I think that if anything, there would be more of a microscope over it, where it's like, wait, hold on, a Sony first party studio made this game? I think people would be a little bit more harsh on the graphics if that was the case, where they'd be like, whoa, that looks pretty last gen, you know? But it is Team Ninja, and I feel like if I look at other Team Ninja games, it's like, yeah, this looks in line with that. It looks pretty similar to Wolong Fallen Dynasty. It looks pretty similar to Neo. And of course, look, I said this yesterday, and I just feel like it's worth reiterating here to just kind of continue the conversation about Rise of the Ronin. I don't think at the end of the day, a video game, whether you play a video game, should be determined by the graphical fidelity. I think unless a game looks, truly like a disaster, like it's just, wow, this is, there's something visually very, very, very wrong with this game. And that to me is like a rare case. It's like, look, it's totally fair to criticize a game like Rise of the Ronin, in my opinion. Game's been in development for like 7-8 years. It's a PS5 only exclusive that's releasing. We've seen what other studios and other games can look like, being a PS5 only title, a next gen only title. It's totally fine to criticize it for that. Say it looks a little bit behind, maybe really behind in some ways. But I think to basically center that, like make that the focal point of like, that's the be all end all for this game. To me, that's just unfair, because it's like, well, yeah, it might not look that like as good visually, but every time I see this game, I'm seeing the action, I'm seeing the gameplay, and I'm seeing that there's a story focus here, and I'm like, all of this is standing out to me. Like, this is looking very good. So, it happens sometimes. You're saying Wolong runs bad and has unacceptable bugs? I wouldn't know. I never did play it. I will say I hope that that's not a situation that occurs with Rise of the Ronin. It would definitely make the situation worse if Rise of the Ronin comes out and it does have some kind of like bugs and performance issues. I think that'll make the situation certainly worse for the game. But yes, that's true. Sony XDev is involved directly with Rise of the Ronin, so that gives me quite a bit of hope that they will be able to, ensure this game can be optimized for the PS5. You're saying they patched the game since then? Yeah, that would make sense. It has been out for a little while now, so. Well, Rise of the Ronin, again, it comes out March 22nd, so we're less than a month away for Rise of the Ronin. For me personally, it's going to be a matter of, I hope I can be finished with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by the time it comes out, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth looks like it's going to be a massive experience that's going to take quite some time, especially if I plan to try to platinum it, which I probably will try to platinum FF7 Rebirth. But it's also worth noting that Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out the same day as Rise of the Ronin. So, yeah, they both look good. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 visually obviously looks a lot better than Rise of the Ronin, but Dragon's Dogma 2 in general looks like an amazing game. So that's going to be a tough one, man. Might have to just buy both games. All right. So those were the two main topics I wanted to discuss with you guys today. What I'm going to do now is move over to some bonus topics that I want to discuss with you guys. But before I do that, we have Kirby Shaw coming in literally out of nowhere. Not dropping a 5-bomb, not dropping a 10-bomb, dropping a 20-bomb.
Holy shit.
Dropping a 20-bomb on this community, crushing the goal of 25 members single-handedly with the help of Corey and Jake Skew. Well, dropping that goal, or drop kicking that goal. I don't know. My terminology is not adding up right now, but Kirby, all I can say is thank you so much for that, man. I genuinely did not see that coming. That's good stuff. I see W's flowing in the chat. Love to see it, man. So to everybody who was just gifted, because that's a lot, dude. That's a lot of gifts dropped at once. For everybody who was just gifted, keep in mind, you now have access to the Members Lounge. We did a Members Lounge episode yesterday. It was about an hour and a half long. Go listen to that. I will use this opportunity to let you guys know, too, that I've been thinking about the Members Lounges, and I want to improve them in the sense of I want to make it easier for people, for my members to know, like, what you're walking into, if that makes sense. Because the way I've been doing it is I just title them Members Lounges, and I do that because the truth is I don't even know what I'm walking into. I go into the Members Lounges sometimes completely unhinged, sometimes completely organized, sometimes they're therapy sessions. It's like you never really know what they're going to be. Sometimes it's gameplay. But I'm going to try to make a concerted effort, although I can't make any promises, that that the Members Lounges will, like, when you see it visually, you'll have a maybe slightly better idea, whether it's the titles or the thumbnails, whatever it might be. You'll just have some type of better understanding of what you're walking into. Sometimes what I think might be best is to change the title of the Members Lounge after the stream. So, like, after the conversation is finished, I could tell you guys what that conversation was about. So anybody who's going to tune in live, I don't know, it might just have to remain a mixed bag. It's MBG Uncut, as you call it. Maybe. Is that what it is? I don't know. But Kirby, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate that 20 bomb. It's that direct support that makes all the difference for me and this channel and this community. And Kirby Shaw comes in again and he uses his milestone chat and he says, gang, gang, appreciate what you're doing. Sorry, hold on. Appreciate you doing what you do. Thank you, Kirby. I'm glad you appreciate it. And again, man, it's that direct support that makes all the difference in the world. So let me update the member goal for you guys, and we're going to move on to these bonus topics. Give me just a moment here. I think we're at 26 members. And there we go. Good stuff, guys. Okay, so the two bonus topics that I have for you. The first is about Suicide Squad. So, King Sam, I read your super chats earlier. You said you just completed the game. Well, there is a report here regarding Suicide Squad, and I want to read it to you, let you guys know what's going on here. Let me get this ad out of the way. Got this ad from Verizon. Is that like a new router? New internet router that they have? Should I upgrade? I don't know. Anyway, when the targeted ads actually work. All right, here we go. Starting with Suicide Squad. After many years of development and delays, once again being reported by WCCF Tech, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League finally launched earlier this month. And it turns out folks' concerns about the game were largely well-founded. Reviews weren't that great, and it didn't seem like people were rushing to play the co-op live service game. Well, it seems like Warner Bros. Discovery is already prepared to throw Suicide Squad under the bus, as they're now admitting that the game has, quote, fallen short of our expectations, end quote. These comments came courtesy of WB Discover CFO Gunnar Weidenfels, I guess that's how you say his last name, during the company's most recent earnings call. This year, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, one of our key video game releases in 2024, has fallen short of our expectations since its release earlier in the quarter, setting our game's business up for a tough year-over-year comp in Q1. Ouch. Not only is WB Discovery already declaring the game as a disappointment, but their comments don't seem to indicate they have a ton of hope for a turnaround either. Year-on-year comparison will indeed be grisly, as last year WB Games scored the #1 title of the year in Hogwarts Legacy. Will this perhaps make WB consider their plans to push live service, the live service model harder? Hogwarts wasn't really a live service after all, and it beats the pants off of the very games as a service-ified Suicide Squad. We'll see. So, yeah, I wanted to report this to you guys because that's what's interesting to me here. It's not what WB is saying about Suicide Squad necessarily, because to be honest, and look, I'm not trying to hate on the game, because the reality is I have seen people saying like they're enjoying it. It's not for me. Like, I've looked into Suicide Squad, and the more I saw of it, the less interested I became. It really started with I don't know if you guys remember, I think we were watching a State of Play. It was either a State of Play or a PlayStation Showcase. The first time we saw the trailer for Suicide Squad, something just didn't seem right to me. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like 2021 potentially, or 2020. Maybe it was even 2022. But I just remember when I first saw it, I was like, this is a strange vibe. And the reason why I felt that way was because I just was like, hold on. This is the same studio that made the Arkham games. This is a bizarre direction for them to go in. But there was a lot of hype for it, because it was Rocksteady. And I was like, all right, yeah, like, hey, man. The first impression didn't leave me feeling that great, but let's wait to see more. And then everything we started to hear about it as time went on, where it's like, it's basically going to be a live service. And then we found out it was mostly a shooter. And, you know, I wasn't interested in these characters to begin with, but for me, it just got to a point where it's like, this is going to be a hard pass for me. And I would have never thought that that would have been how I felt about the next proper Rocksteady game. But as this article points out, this could change the course for WB Games, because WB Games said last year that they are going to more aggressively push in the direction of live service for their future titles. And when we look at the video games industry as a whole, it's becoming clear that more and more publishers are feeling like, you know what, as things become more volatile and uncertain, and AAA single player game development becomes more volatile, we should probably try to lean into live service, because the profit margins there are through the roof thanks to monetization, right? And microtransactions and cosmetics specifically, and battle passes. And so it's understandable. Like, I don't blame any company for wanting to do that. I want to make that clear. I don't blame any video game company for saying we want a piece of that live service pie. But what I do think is wrong is usually the approach. And in the case of WB, I have to really wonder, whose decision was it truly to make Suicide Squad a live service game? Was it Rocksteady? It's worth noting that the original founders of Rocksteady, I forget their names, but the two founders of Rocksteady departed the studio like a year or a year and a half ago, when it became clear that people were not feeling too good about Suicide Squad. You do have to wonder, was this WB's decision, or was it Rocksteady's. Now, if it wasn't going to be a live service game, the next question is, would that have saved Suicide Squad? Would it have led to better results? I think it would have helped. But something that has become clear is that this game is not going to succeed as a live service. You would have thought that developers would have learned with what happened with the Avengers, where it's like, we would happily buy a AAA quality single player Avengers game. But this notion that we want to make it a live service is probably what's going to be the thing that kills it and stops it from reaching any type of meaningful success. Now, granted, because Suicide Squad because it was in development for so long, they probably like were witnessing what was happening with the Avengers and like, we're too far in now. So they couldn't really do anything about it. And Kirby Shaw again with a $10 super chat. Kirby, thank you so much for all of your support, man. You're saying, honest question, are you homies / friendly with any other YouTube folks like Luke Stevens, Spawnwave, RGT85? And if so, would you ever consider going live or doing a collab with them? That's a good question. I do get asked that from time to time. And I will say this, I don't speak to any of the individuals you just named directly, but I do watch some of their content, right? I come across videos, actually Luke Stevens out of everybody, I think pops up on my feed the most. And I do appreciate a lot of his content. I know he does like these really high quality refined reviews, but I think he does like live streams and stuff too. So I come across his content. Seems like a really cool dude. I noticed I reacted to a couple of his videos, I think, talking about Starfield. Spawnwave I see pop up as well. RGT, I see his videos pop up sometimes. And I don't interact with them. And to be honest, I don't necessarily make an effort either. Like, the truth is, I don't know if any of these content creators would want to interact with me and do any type of potential collab or something like that. But I also have to admit that I don't make any effort whatsoever. And that's not because I like have anything against anybody. It's actually quite the opposite. I don't know, man. That's just kind of who I am as a person. I am even though it may not seem like it because I'm, streaming and talking to an audience here, I'm technically just talking to a screen, and I'm responding to typed out words. But I am a pretty antisocial person, or I guess maybe I have some type of social anxiety to an extent. I don't know. I mean, I don't know which it is, right? Like, I just am I've always been that way. I'm just kind of a lone wolf type, if you will. And I don't mean that in some kind of like badass way. I just mean like that's basically the description. I'm just kind of always been on my own. I do my own thing. I just focus on what I'm doing. And, I can interact with people just fine. But I'm just very introverted in that way. I'm a true gamer. Yes, I don't go outside. I don't touch grass. I don't interact with other people unless it's through a game. No, but I obviously I do have social interactions with people. I do go out. It's just I tend to avoid it if I don't have to do it. And I notice that I kind of am that way with what I do on YouTube as well, where, if somebody were to reach out to me, I don't know. Maybe I would say yes. Maybe I'd say, no, I'm good. But I would definitely have no problem interacting. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of what I really would feel like I'd want to do. But in terms of me reaching out and me being the one to kind of make that happen, it's just not a thing that really occurs. And I guess you could say it's my fault. So again, it's it's definitely something that I've been asked over time. And I always say this to people. Am I a recluse? I mean, yeah, you could say I'm a little bit. Yeah, I probably am at this point. Well, I don't know. What is the definition of a recluse exactly? Is a recluse like somebody who literally doesn't go out at all? Or is that a different term I'm thinking of? Maybe I guess I am somewhat reclusive, but I do still go out on occasion. All right. I'm not like, I think there's a different word I'm looking for. It's like a thing where people don't, like they literally have a fear of going outside. Is it agoraphobia? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Agoraphobia. Maybe that's the wrong one. You let me know. I'm not agoraphobic though. I'm a hermit. Yeah, I'm a hermit. I'm a homebody hermit. Recluse. That's what I am. That's what I do. A misanthrope. I do need it, dude. I will say this spring and this summer, I am going to make much more of an effort to go outside more, though. I know that sounds funny, but really, it's just sometimes you can go so long and you're like, geez, I need to get some sun, man. I do. I need to get some sun, but the last thing I'll say, Kirby, before getting back on topic here is I don't ever want to shut the door completely on anything. Like, I don't want to sit here and make some kind of like hard line stance that I'm never going to collab with anybody. That's never going to happen. No. I will be honest with you and say it's unlikely. I kind of like the way things are going right now. I like just doing what I do here solo. I think in a way it kind of makes me a little bit different. Maybe a little bit strange to some people, but I do feel like it is different. Like, I really am just totally solo. You know, I got me and the community here, and that's good enough for me. But I always leave the door open a little bit where it's like, who knows what the future might bring? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So, Kirby, thank you so much for the support and for the super chat, buddy. Let me see. I do have to make sure I bring Boss in here one more time with the treats before we end the show. But getting back to the Suicide Squad discussion, what I wanted to say, and I guess to kind of round this topic off before we move on to the final one here, is this has to change WB's plans, right? You're saying Kirby Shaw is RGT. That would be pretty funny. Oh, there you go. You're saying I'm not solo. I have a cat. That's true. Well, I do have a family as well. I'm not literally lone wolf. I'm not literally lone wolfing it out here. What's the terminology that people use? Like sigma male, alpha male, and beta. It's like beta male or something. I don't know. People throw these terms around, and I'm like, I don't know that this stuff's necessarily that applicable to our modern day society. but maybe it is to an extent. There's still hierarchies and everything else. So anyway, this is what happens. You guys are going to totally derail me. Not looking at the chat anymore. What I'm trying to say about WB Games and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is I think this throws a big wrench into their plans. Because think about it. Last year, February 2022, Hogwarts Legacy launches. What is Hogwarts Legacy? It is a single-player, narrative-driven game that people love. It didn't just sell well. It sold so well that it became the #1 best-selling game of 2023, actually beating Call of Duty, which is mind-blowing because that just like never happens. So you go from that with a single-player experience to what we're seeing now with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, a live service game that people were begging to be a proper single-player game, and it just completely flops. And Kirby Shaw, dude, look at this, man. Kirby Shaw's coming in. He's doing some serious heavy lifting today for this community. Kirby Shaw drops another 10 memberships for you guys. Massive, massive shout out to you, Kirby. That is insane. I got to give you another one of those. I can't believe that, bro. That's 30 memberships gifted. Kirby just dropped 30 membership gifts on his own. He just brought us up to 36 on the day. Kirby, man, I really do appreciate that, bro. I need to see some more W's flowing in the chat for Kirby. He's out here supporting this community. He's growing that MBG army, the MBG battalion. I think those are the two different terms we use. MBG army. What do you guys like better, MBG army or muscle bound battalion? The muscle bound battalion sounds pretty good because it's like it implies that everybody else here is also looking to grow muscle. That's how I imagine you guys, by the way. I imagine my audience is just a bunch of gamers that are also like, yo, we want to work out and exercise and get fit and healthy, bro, and game. I imagine that's all of you guys. Sorry to generalize so much, but Oh, wow. Broccoli Rob is totally unhinged these days. But either way, Muscle Bound Army, Muscle Bound Battalion. I love it. Thank you so much, Kirby. That's good stuff. Let me add that to the counter. Bringing us up to 36 members. Love to see it. Kirby Shaw's out here flexing today. And so, in conclusion, with our conversation about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I think right now Warner Brothers needs to pivot. I think they need to just take a step back and see the obvious, like, what's the takeaway here, WB? It's not that hard to figure out. Is it A, only do single player games and never do live service games again? Is it B, never do single player games again and only do live service games? Is it C, have a complete mismatch and, hey, we're going to do some live service games here that don't make sense. We're going to do some single player games here that sometimes make sense, but other times don't. Or is it D? And the answer is D, obviously. The answer is focus on your single player more than anything and make sure that studios that are known for single player games focus on those single player games. And then outside of that, slowly focus on growing some live service. That's the answer. Like, that is the takeaway. If there's anything that Suicide Squad, I think, makes so clear, it's that Rocksteady should have never been tasked, even if they wanted to. And I know that this sounds a little bit maybe unfair to the studio, but even if Rocksteady said, we want to make a live service game, if I was in charge at WB, I would have said, guys, that's a great thing that you want to do, but no. That's what I would have done. I would have said, you guys are a single player studio. You guys made what is considered the best superhero game ever. You made the best Batman video games ever. A trilogy that's story focused, single player. That's what you guys should do. Like, that's what you should do, because that's not only what you're so good at, but people love it as well. It's a win-win for everybody. And if there was a certain portion of that team that wanted to make a live service, then, maybe, I don't know, maybe form a new smaller team that can work on some kind of smaller side live service project. I feel like the big mistake here truly was taking all of the resource, all of the time, all of the development talent, and funneling it into what was supposed to be some kind of big hit live service title with the Suicide Squad and the Justice League. And it's like, I don't know, man. That to me just seems like, from the outside looking in, that seems like such an obvious mistake. And you do have to wonder, is WB looking at the Harry Potter franchise now after the success of Hogwarts Legacy and saying, we need a live service Harry Potter game? Because if that's their mindset, they're screwed. Because that's not what people want. That shouldn't be the takeaway. The takeaway should be, we need to make another massive single player Harry Potter game of some kind. And here's what you do. If you want to get some live service success potentially using Harry Potter, you do a secondary project. Something a little bit smaller in scale and scope. Something that is almost like a bonus. And that's where, that can live. So my takeaway from this is, they tried something that I don't think was ever going to work out with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And my hope is that they learn from it, and they learn from what Hogwarts Legacy did, what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did, and they can take that and do the right thing going forward, right? Again, I think Hogwarts Legacy sold 23 million copies, man. 23 million. That is staggering. Look, I knew Hogwarts Legacy was going to do big numbers. I knew Harry Potter was popular. I didn't think it would do that. That's nuts. All right. That concludes our third topic today. I'm going to move on to the fourth topic. And this one is a bit unexpected, And I definitely was not, I feel like I learned a little bit through this news, but it's bad news overall. So, have a title or an article here from VGC. Halo co-creator Marcus Leto, it's either Leto or Leto, I'm going to say Leto, has left the EA Battlefield studio that he founded. So I didn't even know about this. Halo co-creator Marcus Leto has left the EA studio he founded to work on the next generation of Battlefield games. Leto, who co-created the Halo franchise at Bungie and performed both art director and creative director roles, founded Ridgeline Games in 2021. The Seattle studio was formed to work on a new single-player iteration of the Battlefield series, alongside the other studios who were working on multiplayer and a spin-off. As noticed by social media users, Leto's X account, which previously noted his role as a game director on the Battlefield franchise, has now removed all references to Battlefield and EA. VGC has also verified that Leto updated his Facebook account on Saturday to confirm he's left Electronic Arts. No reason was given for his departure. VGC has asked EA for comment on the story. Ridgeline Games is currently one of multiple studios working on the Battlefield franchise, which has seen its production significantly restructured following the disappointing launch of Battlefield 2042. According to EA, Ridgeline was working on building, quote, rich, exciting stories with memorable characters and powerful experiences in the Battlefield universe, end quote. Meanwhile, LA-based studio Ripple Effect is working on a, quote, entirely new Battlefield experience that will complement and build upon the series' foundation, end quote. The developer had previously acted as a support team for other studios, including working with DICE to develop Battlefield 2042. In December of 2021, EA announced its intention to create a connected Battlefield universe alongside widespread changes to the franchise's development structure. As part of these plans, DICE's former general manager, Oscar Gabrielson, left EA altogether, while Respawn and Infinity Ward co-founder Vince Zampella took on the new role as the overseer of the entire Battlefield franchise. So, again, a bit of an unexpected article here, but I feel like it's been a long time since I've heard anything about Battlefield. Obviously, you guys were here. I was here for Battlefield 2042. Really strange situation with Battlefield 2042. I was actually pretty excited for it. And then I got a little bit disappointed at hearing it didn't have a single player, but I was like, you know what? Maybe that's okay. Battlefield's known for its multiplayer. And then Battlefield 2042 launched, and I was like, this ain't it. I don't know what they did wrong. Something just doesn't feel quite right. What happened to Battlefield is basically what I was asking myself. And unfortunately for me, they lost me, man. Like, I've always been a big Battlefield fan. I haven't been playing Battlefield since the first game, certainly not. I've been playing Battlefield since, well, I did play Battlefield 2 for a little bit, but I didn't quite get into it then. It was really starting with Battlefield Bad Company 1. I think that came out in what, like 2008 or something like that? It was a while ago. Battlefield Bad Company 1 is what got me into the franchise, and from that point forward, I played Battlefield 3, played Battlefield Bad Company 2, played Battlefield 4. I even enjoyed... Anybody remember Battlefield Hardline? Look, I know Hardline got a lot of crap. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't, but Battlefield 1 was incredible. Battlefield 5 was okay. They started to lose me a little bit with Battlefield 5, but Battlefield 2042 is when they just completely lost me. And so what's really interesting is saying Hardline was mid. I don't know, man. Hardline really wasn't that bad looking back on it. It was pretty fun, but it definitely deviated from Battlefield. But I enjoyed it. But I like totally forgot that this was something that was announced by EA, that, hey, we're like rebooting Battlefield, essentially. We're going to have a connected universe. I feel like I read about them developing a new studio that was going to make a single-player Battlefield game, and Vince Zampella is working, I guess, on the multiplayer side of things. But obviously, this is not good news, right? The lead developer, the director of this single player narrative portion of the next generation of Battlefield games has left. And it it sounds like they ran into some issues. I mean, when a game director leaves, I don't want to say that it spells doom for a project, but it's usually, especially if it's like in the middle of development, not a good sign at all. It definitely confirms that there is something amiss, right? And we're probably, I don't know, maybe we'll get like some scoops on it or something, but I guess the question I'm left with at this point is, will Battlefield truly be able to make a comeback or not? Saying maybe the director sucked. There's that too, yeah. He could have been fired. There's that as well, yeah. I tried playing that game, Hell Let Loose. Could not. Like, I got so frustrated with that game. I'm like, what is this? And I uninstalled it. I could not understand how to play Hell Let Loose. But I miss Battlefield, man. I do. I miss Battlefield. I want to see it make a comeback as well. They have to get back to the glory days. Get back to the roots. Go back to, you know what? Let me give a special shout out right now. Let me see how many of you guys in the chat remember this, or how many of you guys played this. I need to give a special shout out to DICE and to the Battlefield team of years past. The Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam expansion. Holy shit, dude. I could not believe. You want to talk about getting value, bang for your buck, quality, worth, not just worth every dollar, but getting, like, this should have been way more money than they sold it for. Dude, the Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam expansion was so much better than it had any right to be. It was like a new game. And that's when I really felt like Battlefield Bad Company 2 and that expansion and the soundtrack, absolutely. That is when I really fell in love with Battlefield. And I'm like, dude, this is like better than Call of Duty in some ways. I'm like, this is a legitimate Call of Duty competitor. And to see where they are now, it's very sad. It's very sad to see that they just seemingly lost their way. And I don't know what it's going to take, man. Maybe they are going to be making Battlefield Bad Company 3. Or if not that, if they just want to title it, I guess, like Battlefield 6 or something, but it's basically a reboot. But they got to get back to the roots of just, big battles that don't overcomplicate it. Just, I don't know, man. Even when I think about, or when I think about what made a game like Bad Company 2 so good, it did have a solid single player. That's another thing. Like, Bad Company 1 and 2 really stood out because they had good single player experiences. They had some solid characters, and the writing was pretty good, and it was just a good time. But one thing I also remember about Bad Company 2 is the destructibility factor was insane. Like, I still don't think we've seen a game where, like, you could just destroy everything, man. And then you think about Battlefield 3 and 4. Battlefield 3 and 4 were really good too, especially 3, because they were like, it's just a modern Battlefield. It's not trying to overcomplicate anything. Just make really big, awesome maps. Make sure there's a level of teamwork involved, the squads. And I think Battlefield 2042, to be honest, it's difficult. It's difficult to tell you why I feel like they just lost me. I don't know. If I remember correctly, I think they just didn't really have a solid foundation when they launched the game, based off of my understanding of it. They charged you $70, but it just felt like it was lacking, and they clearly wanted to position it as a live service game. And beyond that, I don't know. I remember people just kind of complaining that, like, there were just certain, oh, you know what? It's coming back to me now. A lot of the complaints about Battlefield 2042 were that, like, the game just, like, wasn't finished. Like, it just had a lot, like, there wasn't a leaderboard. The developers, it seemed like it was like a new wave of developers at DICE, and they just kept kind of, for lack of a better term here, shitting the bed with basic stuff that was expected to be in a Battlefield game, and it wasn't there. It just wasn't ready, or they just didn't know what they were doing. You're saying play it now, it's way better. Yeah, and I've heard that too. It's another one of those. It's another one of those stories of a game that came out half baked, lacking, made a terrible first impression, and then boom. I say boom, but it's like realistically 2 years later, holy shit, this game's actually great now. But I'm one of those people that, like, I don't know, man. Once I've moved on, in 99% of the time, once I've moved on, where if your game was really screwed up from the start and I was like, you know what, there's other stuff I want to play. And then you're talking, oh, like a year and a half later, come check it out. It's like, oh, I'm good. I mean, it's nice. It's nice to see them make that comeback. And I think Battlefield 2042, if I'm not mistaken, was given out for free with PlayStation Plus. So I'm just at that point with Battlefield, though, where it's like, I'll wait. I'm good. I'll just wait for the next. Yes, you're saying Cyberpunk is the only exception. For a lot of people, it seems like it was, yeah. But for me, I'm good with just waiting at this point for them to cook up, a reboot of Battlefield, and it'll be really interesting to see which direction they take it in. I mean, Vince Zampella, obviously, he's a legend in the industry. He's responsible for games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2 and whatnot. And then he went to EA, Titanfall. Now he's in charge of Battlefield. So I do think it's in good hands overall. But we'll see, man. I just wanted to report that to you guys because I feel like, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've talked about Battlefield. And I hope that, I hope that they can make it work with the single player studio. Because I think one of the bigger mistakes they did make with Battlefield 2042 was not having a single player. I mean, look, the single player in Battlefield 3 and 4, were they like the most memorable games in the world? No, but they were pretty solid, dude. They were good. And I think they should have continued down that road. Was Battlefield 5 multiplayer only as well? Can't remember. We have Alex Mercer, the prototype. This member milestone chat. He says, underrated opinion. I always thought Doom 2016 multiplayer was pretty fun. It reminded me of Transformers War for Cybertron back in the day with its fast pace. It's funny. I actually completely forgot that Doom 2016 did ship with some type of multiplayer add-on. Wasn't there like a free beta you could play too for it? Whatever happened to it? I guess, I don't know, the server's still up today. Does anybody even play it? Saying Battlefield 5 does have a campaign. Oh yeah, the short stories. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's all coming back to me. Man, it feels so long. I know it wasn't like that long ago, but it feels so long ago. There's somebody in the chat that agrees with you, Alex Mercer, saying Doom 2016's multiplayer was underrated. You know what's sad, man? There are so many different like multiplayers out there, just like what we would consider tacked on multiplayer experiences that were underrated and are still, You got to wonder why that is. But when we get updates on Battlefield, I'll let you guys know. Battlefield 1 was really good, dude. They had short stories in Battlefield 1 as well. Those were very good. I really enjoyed it. Dude, it's shocking what they did with Battlefield 1 because it's like, I didn't think you could make a World War I shooter so fun. And they did. Like, they really did. And I'm like, damn. I know that's not like the most realistic. They had to take some liberties, of course, but it was a fun game. Absolutely. All right, let me do what I do at the end of my streams here, and little update for you guys. Now, here's what I want to say. This is something I'm probably going to start doing. I have been doing at the end of my streams, like when I finish topics up, and I'll probably continue to do it. Just a little bonus on top of the bonus, I guess. I don't know. Just basically checking to see if anything else has come out um, while I'm talking about these topics. Check this out. This is being reported by Okami13 on Twitter. Dragon's Dogma 2 is targeting 60 FPS on PS5. Thanks to Lords Gaming Net. I don't know who. Yeah, thanks to at Lords Gaming Net, we have some actual frame testing from the TGS demo. Based on 1 hour of direct capture, the demo averaged 59.50 FPS. It's an old build, curated demo, so the full game could be different. All right, so figured that was worth letting you guys know about. Now, keep in mind, though, it's that second part is very important. All right, because it was a vertical slice, this is not confirmed by Capcom. Capcom did not come out and say we are targeting 60 FPS on PS5. They said, I believe they did confirm it will be an uncapped frame rate, but we need to be careful here just because since it's not officially confirmed, that vertical slice could have been like pumped up. Because it's a vertical slice, maybe they tweaked some things to allow this specific section to be able to run at 60 FPS, but we need to understand it's not indicative of the full game. So to me, it's like a 50-50 thing. It's good that, that demo was running at 60, so that means there's a higher chance it is in fact targeting 60 on the PS5. But because it's not officially confirmed and it was just a curated demo, I'm also going to be a little bit weary that, all right, maybe it won't actually be 60 FPS. All right, and okay, I see some more reports coming out about the PS5 Pro, but we already covered that. But what I was trying to say before I went over that info with you guys is that at the end of my streams, if I throw in like any just random bonus topics that I happen to come across where it's like, oh, I just came across this on Twitter or this just came out, just keep in mind that might be like a main topic of discussion the next day or something. All right. So if you stay towards the end of the streams, you might get a little extra bonus, but it could end up being a main topic of discussion for the next day. But I'm not really seeing too much right now. I think that's basically the most significant thing I've come across. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see where we at here. We are getting close to the 2-hour mark. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. There's not going to be a members lounge today. All right. So I'm going to let you guys know you're going to notice a change in format on the channel. Not a dramatic change, to be clear. It's not some kind of massive shift. Like, oh my God, I'm just totally, flipping over the channel. No, but there is going to be a bit of a format change. I'm not going to bother telling you what it is. The reason for that is just because it's one of these things where I'd rather just do it, let you guys see it, and everybody will figure, oh, okay, like this is the format now. Because I feel like if I say it out loud, I'm running the risk of just like, oh, but he's not sticking to it. I'm not going to say what it is, all right? But you will notice a bit of a format change. Nothing dramatic. When it comes to the members lounges, they're basically going to stay as they are, where we've been doing 2 to 3 members lounges a week, essentially. That's basically going to stay, or my hope is that that's going to stay. And like I said, I want to try to make it a little bit easier for people to understand what they may be walking into with the members lounge. But today, there will be no members lounge. It's just going to be a regular stream, a shorter stream at that. And so what I'll do for the last, let me see, we have about 6 minutes here. What I'll do for the last 6 minutes is just kind of chat with you guys. If you want to bring up anything before we close this out. and I'll probably close the stream at the 2-hour mark. We are sitting at 36 members. If anybody is planning on gifting anything more, you have about 6 minutes to do so if that's something you would like to do. I will also ask you guys, we are sitting at 227 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up to 250 likes. I'd really appreciate that. The only reason I keep asking for likes is because it does help with YouTube's algorithm. And I do notice that the streams that get more likes, we do get more people coming in. I do notice a slight uptick in subscribers. So hit that like button. Hey, it's Andre. You're saying you really hope that we do get 60 FPS in Dragon's Dogma 2 in some aspect. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking it's because it's going to be an uncapped frame rate. There will be many sections of the game that will run very close to 60 FPS, but I think there will also be many sections of the game where it's like now it's running at like between 30 and 40. That's what I'm thinking. So they can't commit to saying it's 60. Yeah, and I assume because the frame rate will be uncapped, VRR will help it a lot. Like this is probably going to be one of those games where it's like if you have a VRR capable screen, definitely try to make that happen. Turn that on. You guys still playing Helldivers, by the way? Yeah, I did notice that too. PlayStation Passkey is finally a feature on that Sony's offering. Took them long enough, right? Sony's finally getting with the times. PlayStation's getting with the times, offering a passkey. Yeah, I'm still playing Helldivers as well. I didn't quite realize how challenging it's going to be, or at least it feels like it's going to be challenging to unlock everything in the ship upgrade section, because you do have to play on the higher modes like suicide mission. I forget the name of the 8th difficulty, but then the 9th difficulty is Helldiver mode or Helldive mode. And yeah, you're saying you tried it on hard and got decimated. Yeah, when you get to these higher difficulties, man, like it's no joke. It's no joke. Like you need to be on your A game. And you know what I'll be honest, like I don't know that I enjoy playing at the higher difficulties because it gets so stressful. Like I have to be in a certain frame of mind where I'll put it to you this way. If you just want to sit down and like relax a little bit and just enjoy a multiplayer session with some randos or some friends, I don't know that you're going to be able to do that at the higher difficulties. The higher difficulties are for like, okay, you guys ready? Let's go. You know, Leroy Jenkins. Let me end this poll here too. Thank you for reminding me. So I just ended the poll. What will the price of the PS5 Pro be? 870 votes. 61% of you say it's going to be $600. So the overwhelming majority of you guys are saying, maybe not overwhelmingly, but the majority of you guys are saying $600. 22% believe it's going to be $500. I'm going to be honest with that 22% who voted that. I don't know, man. You might want to just temper your expectation. I do not think the Pro is going to be $500. Maybe you'll be right. Kendall Fire is saying Steven Totillo interviewed Sony about the PlayStation Portal. Interesting. Is this new? If so, if it is, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. 13% of you believe it's going to be $700. So not a high amount, not a high percent, but a solid 13% are thinking $700. Only 3% of you think it's going to be $800 or higher. I'm not surprised to see that. I don't think many people are expecting an $800 console or more. So there you go. Those are the poll results. I probably should have put 550 as an option now that I'm thinking about it. I probably should have put 550 as an option. But all right, guys, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. I'm going to do my outro now, and I'm going to start by thanking you guys for tuning in today. Shout out to everybody who watched live. I also want to make sure to give a shout out to anybody who's going to watch the stream later. Again, utilize those timestamps. Want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter for doing those timestamps. He does a great job. They might be a little bit late today, though, because I don't know if he's here or not in the chat. This was a kind of, again, streaming at a different time. Probably, not everybody was prepared for that. So the timestamps might come a little bit later for this stream in particular. But I also want to give a big thank you and shout out to everybody who dropped membership gifts today. Kirby Shaw doing some heavy lifting for the community. Love to see it. And anybody who dropped some super chats, thank you guys for that as well. I am fan funded here. I do rely on this community. I do rely on you guys to be able to do this. It's a privilege to be able to do it. And I thank you so much for that. So good stuff, guys. Last but not least, again, hit that like button on your way out. And yeah, so I'll give Boss some treats when we start up the next stream. Okay. I know I said I was going to do that at the end of the stream, but he's probably sleeping now somewhere. So I don't want to disturb him, but remind me, maybe after the first topic of the next stream, remind me to give Boss some treats. Okay. Because I owe him that. He's in timeout. No, he's not in timeout. Hopefully not. All right, guys, that does it. I will catch you guys in the next one. So until then, take care, everyone.